Hello there. Welcome to the channel. I'm Julez, and I'm into all things true crime. I do true crime stories, and I do current crimes that are in the media today. Today's video is going to be about current events. We're going to begin with the murder of Brianna Kupfer in Los Angeles, California last week. Brianna was 24 years old. She was a grad student studying architectural design at UCLA. She was also working at Croft House, an upscale furniture store in Los Angeles. She was a consultant, and the community actually raised $250,000 for information leading to the capture of the person responsible. Now, what happened was last Thursday between 1:30 and 2 p.m., Brianna was alone in the shop, and she texted a friend of hers that someone had come into the shop and he was giving off a bad vibe. And we later know that it was a homeless man, and about 20 minutes after the text to her friend, two customers came into the store and found Brianna's lifeless body on the floor. She had been stabbed. Now, there was no motive. The crime was completely random. There was no theft, and the assailant left through the back door of the business. He had entered other businesses, and about a half an hour later, he was about a mile or a mile and a third away at a 7-Eleven convenience store, and he went in there and purchased a vape pen as if there was nothing wrong whatsoever. He paid cash, and his trip to the 7-Eleven and the footage of him leaving the store, the Croft House, were all caught on CCTV, and eventually a good citizen identified him, so then law enforcement knew who they were dealing with. And then today, which is the 19th of January, he was arrested after a pedestrian spotted him at a park bench and notified law enforcement. Sean Laval Smith is 31 years old, and he is a career criminal. He was out on $1,000 bond from Northern California for assault on a police officer. But besides that, he has an extensive criminal history in South Carolina, where he was out on bond, a $50,000 bond, for firing a flare gun into an occupied vehicle that contained a man and a child back in November of 2019. But due to the virus, there has been nationwide a huge backlog of cases, and so he remained out on bond. When he was apprehended, Sean Laval Smith gave a fictitious name, but the law enforcement sent for the fugitive unit, and they used a print reader which identified him, and they took him into custody at around 11:50 a.m. Besides that case, on the very same day in Los Angeles on January 13th, when Brianna was stabbed, Sandra Shells, known as Sandy by her friends, a 70-year-old nurse who worked at USC Medical Center and has been employed there for the past 38 years as a nurse, was the victim of a random act of violence at a bus stop. She was struck, fell, fractured her skull, and succumbed to her injuries 3 days later. This was another random act of violence, and the person who committed this random act of violence is Carrie Bell, a 48-year-old transient homeless person who was found sleeping nearby shortly after the incident and taken into custody. And of course, his charges were upgraded. But he also has an extensive record in other states and one prior in California. And what's really terrible also in this is that Sandra Shells was such a kind-hearted person, and helping the homeless was one of her passions, and she even carried extra clothing in her backpack when she would go to work, so that if she came across anyone that needed extra clothing, she could give it to them. On Saturday, January 15th, in New York, 40-year-old Michelle Go, who was a senior manager at top consulting firm Deloitte, was shoved onto the tracks and lost her life. The person who shoved her was a 61-year-old homeless man, and the attack was completely unprovoked. She did not know him. It was another random act of violence perpetrated by a homeless person, and this homeless person also had an extensive criminal history. These were all unprovoked attacks. They all were perpetrated by homeless people with criminal records and possibly with mental health issues. And I really urge all of you to do something to help make changes in our communities, whether it's writing letters, petitioning, voting, anything. In order to bring about some change, we need to make this country safer. We need to make public transportation safer. And we need to not just lock people up. We need to facilitate change. We need to have some rehabilitation going on. We need to reform our mental health system. We need to stop having so many people fall through the cracks. We need to have supports in place. We need to have offenders receive proper mental health care while incarcerated, and help them with supports transition back into the community when they're released, and don't just let them fall through the cracks. Also, the same goes for people with substance use issues. We need to provide supports. We need to have mental health personnel available to them. We need to have workshops, groups, etc. available to them. And as for the homeless around our country, we need to help in some way. We need to make it's safer for them. We need to have outreach programs in order to find and diagnose those who may be a danger to themselves or others before things like this happen. These times are rough, and ever since 2019, there's been growing crimes against other human beings. Here in the United States, the acts of violence have increased by 20%. And thank you for listening to my rant, and please consider doing something to help make this world a better place. If you like this channel, please hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Please comment below, and I'll see you in the next video. And I report on things on the other side of the country. A 40-year-old woman, Michelle Go, age 40. Today's video is going to be about Brianna Kupfer. Well, noise. We're having a bit of noise. I hope it stops. It is quite distracting. We can give it a shot and say, if you like this video, please press that like button. Oops.